So the first question I had was like, after 12 years across completely different categories, you keep seeing the same GTM problems. What's the one that founders never want to admit is theirs?
Unfortunately, and I was actually in Boston Tech Week last week, so spent literally the whole week talking to founders of all different stages. I think the problem that I'm still seeing, although less and less, is founders building based on what they think the product should be and what they think the product's value should be, which is great as starting off. You have to have a starting off point. You have to have hypotheses of what features, functions, and value your end customer is going to want and need. But the problem that I see is that they remain very married to that initial idea that they have, especially founders who are building something that they're personally really passionate about, which is a lot of the people that I spoke with last week. And so the problem there is that they're not actually continuously validating that the way they're solving the problem is aligned with how an end buyer or end user actually wants the problem to be solved. And they're not iterating on what the product feature and function is based on those conversations. And the other piece of having those customer conversations continuously, not just before you start building, but throughout as you're building. The other piece is that you're not getting insight into what makes someone buy, how they buy, what makes someone not want to buy, and why. So I am still seeing people think they know how to solve the problem for their end user and not continuously validate that they're solving it in the right way. Is that something that you see as well with more early stage? Yeah.
Definitely. You bring behavioral science into product marketing. So how much of why the buyer says no has nothing to do, with the product or the pitch and everything to do with how the brain actually
Like
works?
99.9%. No. I don't, probably not that much, but a lot more than I think, especially as product marketers, we know the statistic. We know 80, 85%, even in B2B, is driven by emotions, by your brain. But I still think that we're not actually realizing that and taking that into action when we are, building product messaging, enabling sales teams, creating advertising, and so forth. In my opinion, we need to be thinking just as much about what would inhibit someone to buy, probably more than just what the product features are. And actually, like, for me, the fastest way to actually kill a deal is by putting too much on a buyer, too much of product, too much of features, too many case studies. Then you're creating confusion. People are feeling overwhelmed. You're not actually going to move the sale forward because that person is now just really overwhelmed with what you've shown them. The other side of that is we really need to understand that whether it's B2B or B2C, actually more so in B2B, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable just staying with the status quo versus taking a risk on a new product that could potentially make me look like a moron, make me lose my job, make me lose credibility. That loss aversion is a lot stronger than the potential gain of like getting some compliments on a new tool that I've brought in. So, yeah, I think we need to be thinking about the brain like 90% of the time.
So most companies introduce product-led growth in a wrong way. So what are they actually doing wrong, and why does that keep
I
happening
the
according to
the
you?
the first thing that I see is just not even talking about or strategizing on product-led growth, saying, "No, we're an enterprise company. This isn't for us." That's the biggest mistake. Like, have the conversations, have a lot of conversations, get your best brains in the room together. But once it's decided, there are two different things here. The first is treating PLG as a pricing strategy, but it's not a pricing strategy. It's a value delivery strategy. It's a way to deliver a moment of value to a subset of what could be your ideal customer. It's not a pricing exercise. People are like, we need a lower tier and we need a free trial to get in there so that we can appeal to SMB. That's the wrong place to start. It's not a pricing strategy. And so, what PLG is really all about is it's creating an easier, faster way for people to discover the value of your product. And that's how people need to come into PLG with that mindset, is understand how could we create a product-led experience that gets certain people in the door quickly and gets them experiencing value quickly. Um, the second thing where people get it wrong is try to make it a company-wide initiative. I'm a big fan of setting up, and I posted on LinkedIn about this. You may have seen it. Like, yeah, we called it a tiger
Yeah.
team. I don't remember which organization in my past, but setting up a tiger team to build out your product-led growth, because it takes a lot of work, iteration, good understanding of data, tight feedback with salespeople, because you're often passing product qualified leads to your salespeople. So I think PLG should be a small little tiger team and a small test within the organization to see if it scales, versus trying to make it like this business wide strategy where everyone has to take part in it.
Totally. Love your take on this. Like how everything about enterprise and why
Yeah.
PLG
Yeah.
matters or doesn't
Do
matter.
you see a lot of
So yeah.
enterprise companies
Yeah.
being because you work with a lot of enterprise? Do you see being like super resistant to
Yes.
PLG? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I do. And that's why I was able to relate because you told me about that and I was like, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I've
and
done
it's
this, I've
hard,
heard about
especially
this.
as consultants, to try and convince them otherwise. I think it really has to come internally from the team saying, "Yeah, we're gonna have the
Yeah.
conversations."
And yeah. And especially like when you've lived in it, I think even you know, even I know how how it
Yeah,
functions
it
from
can be
within,
pulling teeth
basically.
sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. Moving to my next question was that you work specifically with resource constrained teams. Is that actually a disadvantage, or do lean teams make better GTM decisions than teams with unlimited
Yeah, so
budget,
I've never
according to
worked
you?
at huge organizations, but I do think that smaller teams have tighter collaboration and tighter systems for feedback, and they're able to work more quickly. They're able to test things more quickly. They're able to align more quickly, et cetera. I think that's a huge advantage when we're talking about go to market, because a lot of go to market is setting up those new motions, new channels, et cetera. And so if you have a tight team that can do that, that's they can just move more quickly and learn faster. But with one caveat though, the what I see often in smaller teams is they don't have the foundational work, and they don't have the time for the foundational work. Like, they'll skip the customer research, they'll skip the actual, positioning, they'll skip jobs to be done work or whatever. The foundational work that really informs a really good go to market strategy. And that's where I see small teams failing, because they're moving so fast and they've got so much on their plate. And that foundational work is sometimes completely missing. And then you're scaling or testing things that are just not really given a fair chance to succeed because the foundation doesn't exist.
Absolutely. I think today the speed with which these lean teams are moving forward is highly commendable because like you make a mistake, you
Yeah.
grow. You make a mistake, you move forward compared to, enterprises and all where there are more processes, more systems in place and you cannot scale as fast,
Yeah,
compared to
definitely,
lean teams.
definitely not. I think that's why I like working with lean teams because I'm someone who I like to move fast and test a lot and implement new
Yes.
processes and initiatives within companies. But there's a lot to be said for working with bigger organizations as well. Sometimes they can move really quickly too.
Yes, but that totally depends on how your manager is or how your super bosses are. Are they like gonna take quick decisions or are they gonna
Yes,
be
yeah,
on
that's
your
a really
side?
good point. Small or big
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
a lot of your flexibility is totally dependent on what kind of manager you have. That's a great point.
Yes, absolutely. But there's something new that we're doing this season. It's called hot take or hard truth. I'm going to throw a few statements at you, and you just tell me like, is it a hot take, meaning would most people push back at it, or is it a hard truth, something that
Okay,
no one wants
love
to speak
it.
out aloud? Yeah, let's do it. So the first one is TAM math is the most misleading slide in any pitch deck. What is it according to
I
you? A
think
hot
that's
take
a
or a
hard
hard truth?
truth. Uh, for me, it's a hard truth. I guess it's technically it's a hot take, but no, to me, market opportunity and market size is not the same thing, especially with the speed at which AI and AI companies are like quickly displacing other companies. The question is not whether a market exists, it's whether you can reliably acquire your first 100 customers, your first 100 happy customers in that market and understand why they bought, why they liked it, why people didn't buy, and then scale that. So for me, I'm less interested in the size of the market and more interested in whether that opportunity actually exists to reliably acquire customers.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the second one. So early stage companies have an advertising problem, but they actually
That's a
don't.
hard truth.
Hot take or
That's a
a hard
hard
truth?
truth. I talk to a lot of early stage
Yeah.
companies that they'll come to me asking about advertising or, "Hey, can you help us optimize our advertising? Like, give us messaging to optimize our advertising." But actually, to me, the foundational problem that they have is either in the positioning of the product, because 'cause they're just kind of saying the same things that competitors are saying, and they're not actually uniquely positioning themselves in the market. They haven't done that foundational strategic work. And so they're sounding like everyone else, and of course, they're getting poor return on their advertising because they sound like everyone else. Um, the other piece is that, they're not actually going back, they're not understanding why people are buying and why people are not buying, and that's not an advertising problem. So I really think again, the foundational work, these companies haven't done the foundational work. It's manifesting as advertising problem, but it's like, no, 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 we got to backpedal and
Yeah.
we got to do the strategic stuff first. Usually I can convince
Yes.
them. Sometimes they're like, no, bye, we're going to go hire a performance marketer.
Yeah. I think there's a process for everything, and skipping one level also gets you down like
It's so true. It
many more
almost
levels.
makes it harder in the end. It's more churn in the end, and it's also wasted advertising dollars. So you're right.
Yeah.
There is a reason I think why why product marketing has frameworks and steps and process. It's because
Yeah.
there are certain things that need to get done
Yes.
in order to successfure the next step. Totally.
Yeah. If only
Right.
our
So
customers could
true.
understand this,
Uh,
that there are
if only.
steps. Yeah. If only we would not have
It's
so
true.
much
It's
sleepless
true.
nights. Yeah. So the last one is a confused buyer doesn't ask questions, they just leave.
Yeah, I
Like
guess it's
hot take or a
another
hard
hard
truth.
truth. Um, well, maybe that's more
Yeah.
of a hot take because I think it's a little bit more controversial. But going back to what I said earlier about dumping too much, and I see this more often in B2B, dumping too much information on customers or on buyers really over can overwhelm them, and a lot of times it just overwhelms them so much that they just walk away. They're like, I can't handle this, I feel overwhelmed. I've been looking into like a place to get start peptide therapy, and one of the places that I talked with sent me so much information via email and so many different options and pricing tiers and blah, blah, blah. I was like, compared to other clinics, which are a lot more
Go on.
straightforward, guess who I never got back to? There's so many options.
Them,
I'm like,
definitely.
dude, this is way too, like, I'm
Yeah,
overwhelmed enough. But so, so yeah, I think that's like a hot take. I do think they won't ask questions. They'll just leave. Go dark. Yeah.
totally. Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much, Shannon. This was such an amazing chat session because it was raw, it was unfiltered, and everything
Thank you,
out there
Nati.
that you
I
spoke.
hope I pronounced that right, but this great. I really enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
you did.